Good evening, and welcome to Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia on Luv Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. In Luv Bay family, we're rising out of the ashes together. Our topic on this evening is love bombing. We have with us our co-host Jennifer Peterkin and our guest Amelia Rayburn Pazika. She is the Director of Education Programs from the Domestic Violence Center of Chester County. And Luv Bay, on this evening, we want to start with a correction. Last week, our guest, Bob Wood, he sent a note to me. He wanted to make sure that we referred to the current Title IX statute with the correct title. So the current title is Title IX Statute 34, CFR Part 106. I believe Bob said 24 on last week, so he reached out to us and wanted to make sure that we had that correct information. So again, the current title is Title IX Statute 34 CFR Part 106. So listeners, if you have any questions or comments for our guest or co-host, you can email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. If you have any resources that you would like to share with us on a national or local level from your country, your community, or your local organizations, or your faith community, you can also email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. And we also want to give another reminder, if you have not done so already, please download the Luv Bay app. You can go to Google Play or the App Store. The Luv Bay app is pretty cool. So again, if you haven't done so already, please do that. And with that, Jen, if you want to introduce yourself on this evening.
Yeah, hello. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Jennifer Peterkin. I am one of the co-hosts here on Suffering in Silence. So you may have heard me before. I am on this program because I was a victim of domestic violence and through my marriage. And after I got out of that, I became a domestic violence advocate, actually through the Domestic Violence Center of Chester County. So I have a close connection to them as well. Right now, I am working on a project called The Human Experience. It is a blog and soon-to-be podcast about telling stories, telling our stories and how our experiences shape who we are and how we relate to each other.
Awesome. And the website is, again...
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Getthehx.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at getthehx.
And Luv Bay, you have to visit the website. The website is absolutely beautiful. I loved it. So congrats to you on that. And I am looking forward to the podcast. Amelia, would you please introduce yourself to our listeners on this evening?
I am glad to. Hi, everyone. My name is Amelia. I am the Director of Education Programs for the Domestic Violence Center of Chester County here in Pennsylvania. And I'm so excited that you and Jen asked me to be here tonight to have this conversation with you. I'm so excited to be here. And I guess I'll throw out a plug, too, that if you'd like to learn more about domestic violence and would like to follow along with some of our content, we are on social media at DVCCCPA. So that's DV, 3 C's, PA.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So listeners, we would like to start with sharing some resources. First, we have information on male sexual abuse in the UK, Male Survivors Partnership. Their website is malesurvivor.co.uk. We also have IDAS in England. This is a specialist charity in Yorkshire supporting people affected by domestic abuse and sexual violence. Their email address is info@idas.org.uk. Their website is idas.org.uk. Their phone number is 03-000-110-110. We also have Befrienders Volunteer Action to Prevent Suicide. To find the helpline by country, you can visit their website, befrienders.org. And we also have Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, also known as RAIN. Their website is www.rainn.org. And again, listeners, our topic on tonight is love bombing. So here I'm going to turn it over to Jen.
Yeah, thank you. So I will just say real quick, I'm so glad that Amelia's on here. I've heard her speak several times. She actually did like some of the training when I went through that at the Domestic Violence Center of Chester County. And so if you are interested in learning more practical things as well, I definitely would give them a follow. They do produce a lot of content surrounding education. So yeah, that's one of the reasons that we asked her to come tonight. So love bombing, it's actually been a really mixed reaction as I've told people what we're doing this week. They either know exactly what it is or they've never heard of it before. And so I think that's a really interesting piece. One of the things that I kept seeing, and one of the reasons that I really wanted to do this topic, is because I keep seeing it pop up in social media. And it seems like it's becoming a buzzword, especially with the younger generations. And on one hand, I think it's fabulous because the conversations are happening. But with anything, if you don't really understand something, or if you don't have an accurate depiction of what it is, then it can be really hard to apply it to your life, right? Like you don't actually know what you're learning about or what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So I'd actually love to turn it to you, Amelia, for kind of like, what is love bombing? What does that look like?
So we see love bombing in quite a few different ways in our work, which is really interesting. So love bombing is, I always refer to it kind of as a tactic, because when we talk about tactics that perpetrators of abuse use. So love bombing is a tactic that these individuals use. It's very manipulative, where they will really just lay on the love, the romance, the affection and attention. You know, they might buy you gifts and make these grand romantic gestures. It's often something that we see early in these relationships. So relationships begin with love bombing. It's reminiscent of, like, all relationships go through a honeymoon phase. But with love bombing, there's things that you can pick up on, right? Things might move a little fast, get serious fast, say I love you fast, get possessive, but it feels almost like romantic and exciting. And of course, they're just really into me, you know. And then, like, a lot of the gifts and lavish, you know, romantic behaviors and gestures and things like that, or showering you with compliments and things like that. I always say, if you find yourself in the beginning of a relationship asking, is this too good to be true? Yes. It probably is. So that's, you know, basic love bombing, especially in the beginning of a relationship. But we do see love bombing recur in especially abusive relationships, in a cycle where we are constantly kind of swinging this pendulum between abuse and love bombing, and abuse and love bombing, which can really mix the two together for a victim in these cases, where it's kind of like, what's love, what is abuse? It's kind of all together. The highs are really high, the lows are really low.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you said about if it sounds like it's too good to be true, it probably is. I think after like, hindsight's 20/20, right? And after going through it, you know, you really do come to terms with that, right? Because it almost feels like, why am I sabotaging myself and, like, thinking bad about this person, and why am I so, like, jaded or cynical? And it's like, no, your gut's there for a reason, and it generally is telling you the right thing. So, you know, some of the things that I think are important with kind of applying how love bombing works within abuse is, now, do you see like a over application for love bombing. Like, oh, he likes me, he sent me flowers, like, am I being love bombed kind of thing. Like, is there this kind of way that there's almost an oversaturation of it?
I have not. So yeah, like when we see a lot of terms become like these hot terms that people start using and misusing. One of the worst ones is like gaslighting. People misuse gaslighting very frequently. Yeah. But love bombing, I think that the biggest misconception I would see out there or misuse of it is just considering it a positive thing. Mm-hmm. I think that people are like, it's almost like I'm looking at a romantic comedy, right? I'm watching the media portrayals of what love and romance are supposed to be. Spoiler alert, none of those are healthy examples. None of them. Like, you're going to be hard pressed to find healthy examples. There are out there, but they are few and far between. So a lot of the media that people consume has this picture of love and romance that looks like love bombing. Yeah. And real life relationships shouldn't have those kind of expectations of these lavish gifts, these lavish dates. It's almost like I watched The Bachelor. Mm-hmm. I hate to admit that. They go on these big romantic, lavish experiences all dressed up. So like it almost is like that in the beginning. Like, am I at a movie kind of a thing? And I think the one thing we see is that people like want it if they don't have it. If you have a normal, boring, happy relationship, you're like, where's the drama? Where's the spice? Where's the love bombing? I think that like part of it too is like jealousy even, and the possessiveness piece of love bombing. People crave it. If your partner's not jealous, I've seen people be like, well, why aren't they jealous? Yeah. You know, if they really loved me, they would do those things. And so I find that to be one of the biggest misconceptions that I see out there when people talk about love bombing, is almost like that's an ideal thing in a relationship. And I think that people would probably think of me as more cynical. Like when I see friends of mine, you know, getting in relationships and it's like, oh, he's taken her on really, really, really expensive dates and buying her these gifts. And then I'm like, let me look into this person. I'm looking in, and he's taken previous partners on very lavish dates and trips and fancy gifts and all the same things. And I'm like, I'm seeing a pattern here. Yeah. But then I say, like, I bring it up like, oh, I'm kind of worried about this. I say it to like a third party, and they say, why? And I say, well, because he's taking on really nice dates. And they're like, yeah, that sounds awesome. That sounds wonderful. Right? So I think that's one of the biggest things, is that people don't think of it as a red flag like it can be. Yeah.
No, that's really true. And it's a really good point about the larger conversation of how far we are from like healthy relationship in our society, that everything that we consume is dysfunctional. And everything that's seen as romantic or as desirable is actually dysfunction. Highly functioning dysfunction. Tia, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask or comments?
Well, for me, I know some people may be initially impressed with the attention of love bombing, but it can quickly grow into an abusive issue. I often tell people, you don't meet someone on Tuesday and then Friday you're engaged. That's completely problematic and totally unhealthy. You know, if this person has been in your life, not even in your life, but you don't even know this person. It's been a couple of weeks and they're offering to pay your rent, pay your mortgage, pay your car note, or buy you a car. Something is wrong with that, because it's not just about that gift. So if I let you do these things for me, what do you expect in return? Like, you don't know my middle name. What's my middle name? like what is it? Spell it. Tell me. But you want to do these wonderful things. There's always a cost attached to it. You know, even if it looks like a healthy relationship, you do not move that quickly. that fast, I'm telling you, the other shoe is going to drop. There's something behind that, because that's not okay for someone to push you that quickly. Let's go to the jewelry store and I'll put diamonds on your hand. Then what? Well, what do you expect in return for those diamonds? And it doesn't have to always be physical. It could be your time and your attention that they want, just solely focused on them. It could be mental and emotional, and that is just as draining. There are just some red flags that I wanted to share, and I went on the Mind Body Green website, and I just looked up some information on love bombing. So I wanted to throw these out there. So just so we can have some practical, things. So one, they give you constant compliments. I mean, constant. It's one thing to say you look beautiful today, but every 2 minutes, you're telling me how wonderful I look, how wonderful I am. That's something is wrong with that. It is. They bombard you with gifts, lavish gifts, even small gifts, but constantly. And again, you don't know me. You don't know who I am. So why are you spending this amount of money on me? Why when I turn around, I see a dozen roses, everywhere I turn? That's not normal. It's not. That's movie stuff. The relationship feels intense and unbalanced. Saying I love you too soon. Again, you don't meet someone on Tuesday and you're engaged Friday. They expect a lot of attention. Just about all of your attention. Everything that you do and say has to be revolved around this person. They shower you with over-the-top gestures. Let's fly to Paris. Let's just go for 2 days and come right back. That I'm telling you, it might put a smile on your face for the moment, but something is coming behind that. And they say exactly what you want to hear. Now, when you're building a relationship, be it friendship or romantic, the person that you are with should be able to tell you the truth. And sometimes the truth isn't always easy to hear. So if someone is always telling you exactly what you want to hear, basically they're buttering you up for something. For something is coming later. They use terms like soulmate a lot. Like, you're the only one. You are the only one in this world that could be for me. You're my only match. Nobody else matters. Nobody else could fit this position. They push for commitment early in a relationship. They get upset with boundaries. So if a moment comes when you start to realize or feel this is too much and you try to back off a bit and, maybe I don't want these gifts or it's not okay, really, they try to force it on you anyway. They're very needy. There's lots of public display of affection, physically and digitally. They always want to hug you, always want to kiss you with other people around. Like, they want to show others that you belong to them. And then the last red flag that I have, and then I'll turn it over to you guys, it's you feel like you have to tread lightly. It's not a good feeling when you feel like he or she is going to give me a gift that I don't want to take, or they're going to make a gesture that I feel uncomfortable with, but I'm also uncomfortable telling them that I don't want to receive this, I don't need this, I don't want this. That's a problem. When you have to be careful, when you're walking on eggshells, that's a problem. So again, in the beginning, you might feel great. There are these good bubbly feelings and it's exciting, but that does not last. The bubble will burst.
Absolutely.
One of the things that there are a couple things that I had to take notes on as you went through those that really stood out to me, and I think that they're really great. One of them is talking about the intensity. I have that conversation a lot when I'm out giving education programs. Is when you're looking at a question, at a relationship, you can ask yourself the question this feels intense. Mm-hmm. Don't step outside of the discomfort that you might feel, because a lot of times we can talk ourselves into thinking that intensity is passion.
Yeah.
And we mistake the two, because and we brought this up a couple times now, the media portrayal of passion is actually just intensity. You know, passion is played out in the movies with screaming matches that turn into like a makeout session, you know, and in reality, a screaming match ends up like somebody crying, somebody leaving, and the whole night is ruined. You know what I mean? And when it happens in real life, it doesn't feel like sexy and passionate. It feels upsetting, you know, and scary. The other thing was, I love that you talked about how everything comes with conditions. And it's hard to know that they're coming with conditions, especially if you're the kind of person who's like giving of yourself. That's how I am as a person, where, you know, I'm very giving of myself, and I don't give with conditions. And healthy relationships is where the love doesn't come with conditions, you know? And so it's interesting though, like, how do I know if this is conditional or not? And you got to that, which was really great with the boundaries piece. As soon as you assert a boundary, they're going to start using those things and showing the conditions that it came with. Exactly. What, but I spent so much money on you. What, but I just bought you A, B, C, D. Exactly. What, but we just went on this beautiful trip. And that's how you see that's how you know in those kind of interactions. And you're so right. It becomes, at first, it's romantic. They are so attentive, and the attention is a flattering thing. And you're right, it quickly becomes a smothering thing, from flattering to smothering. So I loved those different points that popped up as we were thinking about it.
Absolutely. I know, when you're going through red flags like that, it's like, duh, like, this is so obvious. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. But it's interesting that, you know, love bombing, while it seems so sexy and lovely and stuff, is always, from the moment it starts, it's always transactional, right? So just like abuse, like, it's everything, every interaction is transactional. If you play by the rules, and if you do the things that I want you to do, then I will be nice, and I will, you know, not be the monster that I can be, right? And so, but when you lay out all of the red flags like that, it's very clear. And like you both have talked about boundaries, that's like obviously a very clear indicator. I think it's also interesting, so to look at it, like, love bombing is a mask, and it's something that can't be sustained forever. Right. And like, Amelia, you were talking about recurring or coming in and out of a relationship. So within an abusive relationship, your abuser can only wear their mask for so long before things just are going to go up in flames. And so not that you can't move back into that phase, but it's only going to last for a short period of time. So my personal experience with love bombing was my entire dating relationship with my ex-husband. And he was the guy, like, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this, because it's getting more and more popular, and I am like the textbook definition of someone that was love bombed, to the point where it's almost embarrassing looking back on it. But hindsight is 2020, whatever. I've gone to therapy. So, so when we met, he was we were not living in the same state. And so he would drive 5 hours one way to take me to dinner and then drive home. And he did this a couple of times. And after our second date, he had taken me to a restaurant in my area, and he had picked it out himself or whatever, and he took me there. And he was like, how do you like the restaurant? And I was like, it's really nice. Like, I come here kind of frequently. It's really close to my house, but I love this place, so this is great. And he was kind of upset. Like, he thought that it was somewhere I had never been before. So he was like, the next date, like, I'm going to take you to do something you've never done before. So for our third date, he drove 5 hours, took me into Philly, and took me on a glass blowing date. So we did like one-on-one glass blowing. So there's the extravagant, expensive, like totally out there not third date material. Not appropriate for third date. But
Definitely not bowling.
no, it's not bowling. But the reaction of like family and friends too, like my girlfriends and my family was like, oh my gosh, like he's so thoughtful. He's so, he likes you so much. Like he's so thoughtful. He's so excited to be with you. And he's just like this great guy who puts so much into what he's doing. And so I was absolutely like swept up in that. And it's interesting because when we first started going out, I was really unsure about whether I wanted to be in a relationship with him or not. Nothing major, just like, I don't know if I'm feeling this. And what put me over the top was like all of these things. It was like, well, I kind of feel like I have to keep going because he's doing all of this stuff for me and I should at least give him a chance. And that's not to say that like, if I hadn't been love bombed that I wouldn't have gone out with him. I'm not saying that, but that whole thought process was totally there. And what sealed the deal where we actually like got into a more serious relationship was at the time I was doing advocacy work for victims of human trafficking, and I was organizing a benefit concert. And we had been dating for like a month, and he was in the military. He was supposed to be like on duty that weekend, and he wasn't going to be able to make it, and which was fine. But he like got special permission to leave and came up and booked a hotel room for the night and like surprised me and like came and helped me with the concert and all of this stuff. And it was like, wow, okay, like I really have to give this guy a chance here. Like he's doing the most.
He defied the government for you.
Right? So, and I will tell you, like, the whole spiel while we were together was, he's perfect. He's so perfect. And we didn't fight. I had, like, all of these hobbies and interests, and he seemed to just be on board with all of them. Like, which I will say is another red flag. If your partner does not have their own interests, or if they agree with everything that you think, that's a huge red flag. That does not make you compatible.
Right.
Which is what I thought. I was like, oh my God, we're so compatible. We just don't disagree about anything. Really, really unsustainable, really unhealthy. And that lasted until as soon as we got back from our honeymoon. It was like as poetic as it could be. As soon as our literal honeymoon ended, the honeymoon phase ended as well. And there were moments where like love bombing would come back into the relationship, but it really changed after we were married. That was like, okay, the ring's on, the act's over. I can drop the mask.
Yeah. Wow. Well, as you were talking, I thought of two things. And one thing I wanted to say is that when I do speak to couples, especially married couples or those who want to be married, I tell them, if there are two people, you are constantly happy, always agree on everything, there is never a difference of opinion, one of you is lying, one of you is miserable, or one of you is playing a game. Because two people, you have two different minds. You may have a lot in common, which is okay. And you do want that, to have a lot in common. But you are not going to agree on every single issue. And now with that, I'm saying not agreeing on every issue, that doesn't mean that you have to fight. I mean, you can agree to disagree in a healthy way. Okay, but both of you always want to go mountain climbing. Both of you always want to go skiing. You always want to jump out of an airplane. Both of you always want to do the same things. That's not... I'm sorry, one of you is miserable.
And it's somebody always wanting to be around you and
Yes.
watching you.
Yes.
And making sure that they have that power and control over you.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what, when Jen was telling that story, I thought of, is that like suddenly he's involved in every one of your things.
Yes.
Because then he can take that from you. You know, this is my thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm here all the time.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't have a lot of friends. And you don't have to have a lot of friends to be.
Yeah, but you need somebody other than me.
That's a red flag.
Exactly. It is. You know, some people, you know, you have a couple good friends. If you have a couple good friends, that's fine. Yeah. But if you don't have friends, or you don't want to spend time with your friends, that too. So it's one of those things, again, where like it seems sexy that somebody wants you to be their entire world, and it's not. Yeah. And I can tell you from experience, it doesn't feel sexy. It feels like prison. It feels like the walls are closing in around you and you're suffocating. And I remember at one point, like one of my lifelong goals, dreams, is to write a book. And, you know, I had obviously shared that with him and I, you know, had been writing a book and some stuff happened and I had stopped and whatever. It was just like, this is a journey for me and whatever. And all of a sudden, guess who's writing a book? And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And this was kind of towards the ends of things. And I was like, absolutely not. You are not writing a book. You're not allowed to write a book.
Well, the other thing that I wanted to share is that love bombing doesn't have to be limited to expensive and extravagant. So now, my personal experience that I had some time ago, I had a friendship with someone, and it was just friends, and I was clear about that. Friends, that's it. Somewhere along the line, his mind changed, or maybe that was his mindset from the beginning, and he thought I was going to change or something. Like, no, you know, I was just, you know, firm on that point. Friends. Well, at some point, he started offering to do things for me, you know, small things for me. And I mean, he lived in another state. He's like, I'll come cut your grass for you. No, thank you. But I'll come take your car to the mechanic. No, thank you. I'll come shovel snow for you. I'll come do this for you in your house. No. And my answer was always, no, I don't need you to do these things. I will do them myself, or I will pay a professional to do them. And it got to a point to where it felt harassing in a sense. You know, he just kept asking, and, you know, I felt like I was being pestered. And so I was really clear. No, I do not need your help on these things. I'll take care of them myself. I'll do it myself. Well, then there came a time, and this was, I remember it was February. I don't remember what year, but it was February because it was around Valentine's Day. I hadn't talked to him in a little bit, and so he called, and he said, I'm sorry, I was avoiding you. And I'm thinking in my mind, really? I didn't know you were avoiding me. Because again, we're just friends. You don't have to call me. You don't have to talk to me. So he said, well, I wanted to get a gift for you for Valentine's Day, and I couldn't get you what I wanted. So I just didn't talk to you. I just, you know, didn't call you. So first I'm thinking, all right, well, that's your reaction. That's what you do if you're disappointed or whatever, you revert, because little boys do that. That's totally immature. So I said, you know what? It's fine. You don't need to get a gift for me because that's not where we are. And he said, well, I want to take you to dinner. I said, look, if you want to hang out, that's cool. We can go hang out anywhere. We can do whatever. I am paying my own way. I'm paying for whatever I do. I'm driving my car. I will meet you there. And then I guess that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And he finally said, well, no, I want more than that. We need to be more than friends. This is what I want. And if you can't do that, then we can't be friends. So, okay, you are absolutely right. Goodbye. This isn't going to work. And so, but he tried to make me feel as if I was doing something wrong because I would not accept his generosity. He was willing to drive 2 hours to come and do these small things for me. I'll come and put your trash out. No, I saw there was a problem in that. There was something in that. We have no ties. We have nothing that's saying we're moving in that direction, towards, even a friendship on that level, to put yourself out to do that, so I wanted to emphasize, it does not have to be somebody throwing fur coats at you, and just throwing money at your feet. It can be those pesky little insistent things someone's trying to force themselves on you. So there are different types or different levels. But I think the bottom line is, if you feel uncomfortable, something is wrong with that. So no, I don't want you to come and shovel my snow. No, I do not want you to fly me to London. No.
A to Z.
It's the classic, like, John Cusack from the 80s movie, yes, holding a boombox outside of your window. Tell you, when I was in like 9th grade, a boy did that, and I was instantly creeped out. Like, I did have a crush on you until you showed up to my house without me knowing that you were coming over. But it can be like those big romantic gestures that don't take much money, but they take a lot of time and thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or it can be like, I wait at your locker every single day, in school. I bring you lunch at work every single day. Like, I do these little things even mm-hmm. without asking permission to do it. I just show up and do it. Surprise. Mm-hmm. Isn't this such a romantic surprise? Mm-hmm. And I love how, you discussed how he tried to spin it on you and make you feel guilty. Like, what's wrong with you that you don't find this romantic, that you're not attracted to this? And it's similar with like Jen's friends and family being like, this is so romantic. This is such a good thing. It's like imagine being in that situation and everyone's reinforcing that. And you really do feel like the only one who's got doubts, who feels uncomfortable. Sure. We start second guessing ourselves. We start thinking, maybe there is something wrong with me. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is a good situation that I should be in. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that can be something troublesome at the beginning of those relationships, is like, if everyone's reinforcing that this is something that's great and that there's something wrong with you, that you're not interested in a person who would be going out of their way to do these things, that's unhelpful, and that's a big piece though of what happens with relationships that begin with that love bombing, which most abusive relationships do. And so a lot of people are, from the beginning of the relationship, kind of under the same spell. They cast this spell over everyone, and everyone loves them. But it does continue to recur, as you said. And that's one thing I think is important to touch on, is that these relationships, once they, start feeling a little more intense and not in a great way, and the tension starts building, we eventually do reach often abusive incidents, right? Whether it be, verbal, emotional, what have you, but something finally snaps, crosses the line, right? And immediately after, the love bombing starts again. Mm-hmm. And that's an important thing to note, is because immediately after I explode, I'm apologizing and promising things are going to get better. That'll never happen again. I promise things will be better. And then I start the love bombing. So to prove to you that things are better. And a lot of people see that part of the relationship, but the love bombing comes back. I start doing romantic things, showering you with attention, doing all the things that you'd asked of me before. Things aren't just better, they're better than ever before. Hell, healthy relationships don't even go through that, right? Mm-hmm. So, in that situation, it's kind of like, you're questioning again. Things are really good now. And was that just kind of a slip up, and we're falling back into a good pattern and in a good place? And that can be really confusing and difficult. And a lot of people get focused on that piece of things, and over time kind of think like, this other stuff is just stuff that relationships go through. Relationships take hard work. We're sitting here tonight saying, it's normal to disagree in relationships. It's normal to get in arguments.
Yeah.
It's normal to, and in that situation, it's like, I remember, being a survivor myself, being in that cycle of abuse, and the love bombing made me think, well, this is worth fighting for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a big piece of it when it's later on in the relationship, right? Like moving on past that first love bombing to get you invested. If we fall for it, which we often do, it's hard not to.
Yeah.
I mean, to get that kind of attention is a thing that you can only get in a romantic comedy, you know what I mean, in Hollywood. And so when you get that kind of attention, it's like, I don't want to give this up. This is great. And you're like, this is worth fighting for. And I remember saying that a lot to people, like, but when it's good, it's so good. Things are so good. And I'd look at like healthy relationships around me and think how boring. Our relationship has so much romance and passion and intensity, and and now that I'm in a healthy relationship, I'm like, I love the boring. This is the good stuff. This is the good stuff.
Can we just eat ice cream and watch television?
Yes, because once you're outside of it for the first time and you're able to be outside of it looking in, clear from that smoke screen of like love bombing and abuse, you can be like, wow, none of that was actual love.
Right.
And love, and that's a big thing to really differentiate, is that love bombing is not love in any way, shape, or form. And you can have love without all of the extravagant things that love bombing comes along with. You can have love without the intense passion, without the smolder, without the helicopter over New York City.
Yeah. Right?
Right. Well, Luv Bay, we want to welcome you again to Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia on Luv Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We are here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern, with a replay on Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern. Luv Bay, we are continuing to rise out of the ashes together. For information on male sexual abuse in the United States, you can go to malesurvivor.org. We also have the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Their number is 1-800-656-4673. We also have the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. Their website is www.nsvrc.org. We also have the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Their number is 1-800-273-8255. And we have the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Their number is 1-800-799-7233. And the teletype number is 1-800-787-3224. And Amelia, I would ask you if you would share the contact information for the Domestic Violence Center of Chester County.
Yes, so you can find us online at dvccpa.org, and you can find out all about our services that way, as well as following us on social media at dvccpa. But if you are in the Chester County area in Pennsylvania, you can feel free to reach out to our 24-hour hotline. It's available with a trained counselor on the other end, holidays, weekends, overnight, at 1-888-711-6270.
Thank you so much. Jen, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so what I was thinking about while you guys were talking is, we're talking about the cycle of abuse, and we're talking about how when things are really good, they're great, and you feel so good about it, and your lows are low. And I think this is another part of, people not understanding why people stay in relationships. And so, just, I think, wanting to draw attention to the fact that this is it. This is one of the reasons people stay, because the intensity of the love bombing and the, affection and the grand gestures and the romanticizing of all of that, it's part of it, and like you said, Amelia, when you get into this cycle, like, it just becomes a part of your life. It becomes a part of your relationship, and it is so normalized. We are creatures that are very able to normalize quickly, and I think it's one thing we don't really realize about ourselves. Once we start doing things a couple of times, we're in it. Like, we're done, we're good, we're sold. So yeah, I think that's a really important thing to note. Also, as we've been talking, it's, I look back at my family and friends that were so unaware of, I was unaware of what was happening. They were unaware of what was happening. And it just brings me back to the fact that a lot of people that I talked to tonight, like, did not know what love bombing was, didn't know the term. And, I actually have had more people ask me about tonight's episode than any episode we've done before, because it was like, what is that? Like, it sounds kind of cool. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Love bombing. But yeah, so I just wanted to draw attention to those things. But as we're talking about, how to recognize the signs, what are some ways that you can kind of protect yourself or know how to behave if you think you're in this type of situation, or you think this is happening to you, or might start happening to you?
The biggest thing that I can say is to start conversations early as you can about your boundaries in relationships. Do not let boundaries even be tested without starting to very clearly communicate them early in a relationship, and regularly. I might not have an opportunity to communicate a boundary until a few months into a relationship. Communicate it, though. So that's one of the biggest things. The other thing is, one of the issues that I often see myself having in relationship history, but also with a lot of individuals, is that we doubt our gut feeling. My gut is telling me something, and my head always thinks it knows better. Mm-hmm. And I try and talk myself out of that gut feeling, and I try and rationalize why I feel that way. And to bring it back to like romantic comedies or like movies, in these romance movies, when someone starts pulling away because they're like, this is too much, the other person's always like, you're just scared. And they're like, you're right, I'm just scared. And it's like, that's not a good thing. Like, you shouldn't feel scared in the beginning of a relationship.
Right? Now you're going to pump me into doing this.
And so that's what I'm saying. It's like, don't even let your head or anybody be like, you're just scared. Like, yeah, I am kind of scared right now, and I need a little space to like process why I'm feeling this way. Yeah. So like, don't be afraid to, when you have a gut feeling about something, to like step outside of the relationship and like think about it, talk about it. Talk with a really healthy third party in your life about it. Like, if you have a really good friend or family member that's like super non-judgmental, always has your back, is the kind of person that's going to be real with you in a loving way, bounce it off of them. Go to your therapist, bounce it off of them. You know what I mean? But bring these things up and process, like, I had a weird gut feeling and I don't know where it's coming from. Can I process this with somebody? And that's an important thing, because I'll tell you, I know so many times myself and other people just question our gut instinct about something and just think, I'm just making this up. I'm just being silly. I'm just scared to fall in love, you know?
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. First of all, just a little offshoot of what you said, but don't wait to go to therapy until something's wrong. Start going to therapy, because what I have learned in my short time, is that a lot of people don't know what their boundaries are. And that's not like people in your life necessarily dropping the ball, because a lot of times your parents and the adults in your life also don't know what their boundaries are. They've also never been able to communicate their boundaries. So one of the healthiest things that you can do for yourself is to know what boundaries are, what your boundaries are, and how to enforce them. And therapy will enable you to do that. If you don't have the equipping to do that yourself, or you haven't been taught how to do that, don't wait until you have experienced trauma to go to therapy. That's not what therapy is. It's not only for people that have experienced trauma. It's good for everybody. I think everybody should go to therapy. So yeah, I think that that's a really important piece, because we talk about boundaries a lot here. And I know for me personally, like, I had to learn after experiencing my trauma and realizing actually there were people in my life prior to my husband that were not respecting boundaries, and it was just kind of a very common thing in my life, and I think that's a common thing in a lot of people's lives. So yeah, go to therapy. You'll be a lot happier and a lot better off if you do. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I was going to mention is that, you know, with the trusting your gut, we are so hard on ourselves. And, you know, I just challenge anybody to think of things this way, because I do this for myself sometimes. You know, I'll be beating myself up internally for something that I did or said. And I'm like, how would you respond to your friend if they told you that they had done this or that they were experiencing this? You would never be as hard on them as you are being on yourself. And you would never mistrust your friend as much as you mistrust your own feelings and your own self. So just, you know, something to keep in mind as you learn how to trust your gut as a reliable source of information for yourself.
So I just wanted to point out what you said, Amelia, when you talked about healthy third party. That keyword, healthy yes. Third party. Do not go to the friend or the sister or the one who secretly wants the gifts that are being given to you. You will not get an honest opinion or good feedback from the person who is like desiring what you actually have a problem with in your intuition. Okay? You can't go to your brother and talk to him about this woman who is offering to pay your rent and buy you a Mercedes, and he's thinking, wow, I wish somebody would do that for me. No. Healthy third party. Someone who doesn't have a stake in this. Someone who wants, you know, to see your best interest come out of this. Someone who will be honest with you. It has to be a healthy person. And if you don't have that friend or that family member, then step out to a therapist. Call one of the hotline numbers and speak to a counselor that way. It's free. They're available 24 hours. Even if you just have a question, you know, if it's rolling around in your mind, have the conversation. But that keyword was healthy third party. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention, I wanted to say that you have to take care of yourself. You have to love yourself. Build your self-esteem, build your self-confidence, and know that you are worth it. You know, and invest in yourself so you're not easily falling for someone else giving attention to you. Give that attention to yourself. Take yourself shopping. Take yourself out. Go on a date for you, for yourself. You know, so when someone comes along and says, I'll take you on a shopping spree, I'll buy you a new wardrobe, you won't just fall head over heels and be happy. No, I can go buy my own clothes. I can walk into a jewelry store and pick out whatever I want, and I can put it on my own hand because I've taken care of myself mentally and emotionally and financially. I think a lot of people, unfortunately, find themselves in a financial position where they can't afford to do some of these things. So when someone else comes along, they just fall for it. Well, build your own finances. Take care of you. So if you want to go to Paris, you can go yourself. If you want to fly somewhere, you can fly. So take care of you. I think that's the bottom line. So when someone else comes along and says, I can do this for you, then you can honestly within yourself say, well, I can do this for myself. So what else are you bringing to the table? So you can't get me with the gifts and the money. You can't flatter me with the words, because I look in the mirror myself and tell myself that I'm beautiful. I don't need you to say that to me. It's really nice, but I'm not going to get all giggly and bubbly because you said it, right? I say it to myself. So I think that's a huge part of how also we can protect ourselves by just loving us. You know, it's really nice to hear compliments from other people, but don't live for that, because you might not hear it. And then when you do hear it, it may not be sincere. There may be something under that. So be in a position where you are loving you and building you. And when you build yourself up, when you put that attention into yourself, someone else can't easily come along and tear it down. Really can't. Self-worth means a lot. So invest in yourself.
That resonates so much with me. What you said is like taking yourself out, doing things for you. That was when I left my abusive relationship. That was the one. People are always like, how did you get to a place where you were ready to date again, where you felt safe and confident, you know, putting yourself back out there? I said, well, the first thing I did is I fell back in love with myself. I took myself out to do things. I took myself to the art museum. I bought myself box seats to the opera. Like, what a wild thing. But that, and the biggest thing was that these were things that were not connected to him in any way, shape, or form, that he had not taken and inserted himself into, you know, which these often possessive partners tend to do, is they bogart your dreams and your things. So I started taking myself out and doing those things that I loved, that reminded me of me, that like brought me back to like my core me and made me, fed my inner child. You know what I mean? With these, maybe not extravagant, but like the sentiment is better than any extravagance for me. But some of them were extravagant. But like spending an afternoon reading a really amazing book was enough for me. You know, that was something that was so powerful. And I love what you said is one of my favorite quotes leaving an abusive relationship is, I know what I bring to the table, so I'm not afraid to eat alone.
Right.
I love that.
That is beautiful.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, I agree. That really resonates. And that's absolutely beautiful what you said, Tia. I think so many of us don't know how to be alone. And there's a bigger conversation in our culture, in our society, about especially women being alone and, you know, the cultural currency of that. So there is a larger conversation there, but I think we are progressing and we are in a space where largely women are fed up. So yeah, I think we may be turning a corner, and that's always great to see. Because the truth is that you have to live with you forever, right? So you have to love you. That's the most important. That's the most important part.
Yeah. Look, I tell people, single is sexy. Single is beautiful. It is. You have to lean into it, and you have to do it the right way. And that is not allowing someone else to invade your singleness and push you to somewhere you don't want to be. And when you do it right, being single, when you love you and when you come to that place of maturity, then you can step into a relationship. And not just like head on, you just dive in, meet this week, married next week. No, but willing and able to truly give this a shot and get to know this person slowly over time. You know, if you come to that place of maturity in your singleness, then you can walk through this, when you begin a relationship. And any relationship should start with friendship. Then, you'll be in that place of maturity where, you can be friends, start to get to know each other. And it's really nice if you're attracted to me, I'm attracted to you. But you know what? I'm not head over heels. I'm not about to sign my house over to you. You know what? My house keys, my car, my blood type, all that. No. But there's something to be said, about loving you and taking care of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you, whatever you decide, there's no wrong way to live your life in terms of whether you want to be single, whether you want to be in a relationship. Those desires are not wrong either way. But there is something really special about coming to a place. And I, even just the past couple of years, like personally have come into this place where I am like, I really like my life, and I don't know if I want to add anybody in because I'm kind of cool and I'm good. I just got back from Egypt by myself, and I have never been happier, and I'm just so excited to be where I am. But part of that was coming to a place of liking who I am.
Yes, that is absolutely amazing. I totally agree with you, and I am totally happy, for you. So, ladies, as we have come up on an hour, Amelia, we want to give you the final word for the evening. Is there something that you would like to leave the listeners with on tonight?
I would just like everybody to trust their instinct and know that love bombing is not love, and there is real love out there for every one of you.
Thank you so much. Luv Bay, if you want to catch up on previous episodes from the program, you can visit our YouTube channel at Suffering in Silence DV. We thank you for joining Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia on Luv Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We are here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Luv Bay family, we continue to rise out of the ashes together. Good evening.